Ya estás en Cine-secuenciaS, una coproducción del INCINE y Canal 22.
En esta ocasión tenemos un programa muy especial.
Es sobre un genio del cine, haciendo una película sobre otro genio del cine, en pleno centro histórico de Guanajuato.
Los llevaremos al rodaje del cineasta británico Peter Greenaway dirigiendo su filme Eisenstein en Guanajuato, basado en un guión de su propia autoría.
Una película mexicana fuera de serie, realizada en coproducción con Holanda y otros países europeos.
El equipo de Cine-secuenciaS estuvo 3 días como invitado en esta filmación, a la cual hemos dedicado este programa entero. ¡Corre cámara!
You know, there's a new anthropological excitement in the world, which are reorganizing things. You know, Europe is meant to be the old world, and South America is meant to be the new world. But when you examine it, probably it's completely the wrong way around. I'd been to Mexico, I suppose, about 20 times, you know. But it's different now. Now I'm working here. I've had a great interest in Aztec culture for a very, very long time. You know, I used to spend a lot of time in the British Museum, which has a very, very large collection of South American remains, but also Mexican. Well, you know, maybe, you know, I come with all the ideas of a foreigner. But I am pleased to think that the script I've written, a lot of Mexicans really feel very favorable about it, because I haven't come as a, you know, as a Eurocentric foreigner casting aspersions on Mexican. I argue that cinema is either dying or dead. It's certainly changing very rapidly. So maybe now is the time to make a film about the greatest cinematic practitioner. And I would say, I would argue, that's Sergei Eisenstein. It's said, isn't it, that cinema has only remade 2 discoveries. One is the glance, but I think the glance is apparent in painting going all the way back to ancient Egypt. And the other thing is montage theory. And of course, Eisenstein is mainly responsible for perhaps the one singularity, the one new aesthetic, adventurous invention that has been part and parcel of the notions of cinema. Eisenstein, as I've suggested, was a great innovator. And cinema was new then. It was still new, you know, we're talking about 1920s. It's generally accepted that Eisenstein, maybe along with Pudovkin and Dozhenko as well, was responsible for a new way of looking at cinema. I discovered Eisenstein, Sergei Eisenstein, as a great Russian filmmaker when I was in art school in London in the sort of early 1960s. The first film I saw was one of his late historical films, Ivan the Terrible and the Boyar's Plot. I must have been about 15 or 16. And I really, really became fascinated. And I think that fascination has stayed. I've seen, you know, everything that Eisenstein has made. I've been to Moscow several times. I've been to Eisenstein's library. I've been to the Urals where he filmed. I've read all the books and all the academia, of course, all translated into English. And I became fascinated by him. He's an extraordinary polyglot figure. He spoke 8 languages. He had a huge knowledge, I think, not just of painting, but of literature and certainly of the stage. So he was a big generalist, you know, he put masses of information together. He came here. He first of all was invited to Hollywood to make a film. Absolute disaster. Hollywood doesn't know how to handle intellectuals, because Hollywood's really basically interested in money and not really interested in the cinema. And Charlie Chaplin had suggested that he should come to Mexico. He was in Mexico, I think, for probably about 14 months, I think.
Eisenstein llegó a México en diciembre de 1930, patrocinado por el norteamericano Upton Sinclair y su esposa, para filmar Que Viva México, una visión muy personal del cineasta ruso sobre el México profundo.
Desgraciadamente, por diferencias con su patrocinador, el rodaje se suspendió. Eisenstein no tuvo acceso al material original y no pudo editar la película.
So I put my interest of coming to this town, this silver mining town of the 18th century. It's almost in a time warp here. You will see television eras, of course you will, but most of it is, you know, more or less the same as it was 50 years ago, even 100 years ago, the time of Diego Rivera, for example, whose house is here. He was born here. So there's a way you can make a contemporary film comparatively cheaply without having to do huge amounts of artwork here. And so I came up with a scenario.
I didn't know so much. I, of course, knew his biggest film. I've seen Battleship Potemkin, I knew that, and I'd seen October, and I'd seen some bits of Alexander Nevsky. I mean, I knew who he was, and I knew about what he had done, but nothing really more, so it was quite new. What I started to work, I read 2 biographies. I also read about the Russian Revolution and around that history. I read about Stalin around that, so I got involved in that. And then I also studied a little bit Russian.
Well, he's trying to frighten you for 2 reasons. Frighten you because it's fun to frighten you, and frighten you because there is. Be careful. So we searched all over Europe, we searched all over America. I had casting sessions in Paris, New York, in California, in Rome, in London. And I came across this guy. His name is Elmer Back. He was born, I think, in Helsinki in Finland, but his parents are Swedish, and I think there's some Danish background to him too. So let's call him a Scandinavian. He's not particularly, I think he works in the theater largely, and he now lives in Berlin. So again, he's a very cosmopolitan character.
Well, it all began, I sat in a car. I was coming from Poland. We had played with our theater group in Poznan, in Poland. And then I suddenly got an email that would I be interested to come and cast for Peter Greenaway's new film, which came totally out of the blue. I was totally amazed by this. I wasn't expecting it.
But I thought he was engaging. I thought he was funny. If physically he looks a little, maybe he's not as plump as Eisenstein was, age 33. But he is age 33, and Eisenstein was 33 when he came here to Guanajuato. 10 days, only 10 days. And that's rather sort of useful figure. He made, his first 3 films really are Strike, Battleship Potemkin, and October. And October is sometimes, its secondary title is 10 Days That Shook the World. And my film's secondary title is 10 Days That Shook Eisenstein. We could say that Guanajuato to Eisenstein was heaven. Okay, gentlemen, if we can have you here.
Mi personaje, bueno, es Jorge Palomino y Cañedo. Fue un mexicano antropólogo, genealogista, maestro de religión comparativa en la universidad en 1931, eso era lo que hacía. Este personaje es miembro de una familia de Guadalajara, que según esto viene como de la aristocracia, o sea, era alguien como muy de la high, como con mucha cultura cosmopolita, políglota, había viajado por muchos países, y en ese tiempo era una figura importante, conocida en el medio artístico e intelectual pues en México, ¿no?
All my films have got a manifesto, and I think, you know, the first 3 films we've mentioned, Strike, Potemkin, and General Line, were brilliant films, but they were very films about ideas, groups of people involved in ideologies. But if you take the last 3 great films, which are Alexander Nevsky, Ivan the Terrible, and The Boy's Plot, they're suddenly about people. And I believe, my thesis is, the change happened because he came to Mexico, and he learned about sex and death. He became humanized.
al ser Peter un director que se le puede relacionar más bien con cine de arte, más que cine comercial, implicó un reto muy importante, cómo financiar la película, ¿no? Contrario a lo que la gente podría pensar o suponer, no nos llovieron las ofertas de financiamiento, al contrario, es una coproducción entre México y Holanda. La película tiene nacionalidad mexicana porque la mayoría del talento, de las cosas que se ven en pantalla y de las cosas que transmiten, es gente nacional, ¿no? El director de arte, sonido, vestuario, maquillaje, gran parte de los actores son mexicanos. Por otra parte, hay financiamiento con el fondo, con el Dutch Film Fund, y a su vez hay algunos vínculos con Finlandia y con Bélgica.
La dirección de fotografía estuvo a cargo del holandés Reinier van Brummelen,
quien en 2004 colaboró con Greenaway en su filme Las maletas de Tuls Looper.
Es una película que se está produciendo aquí ahora con menos de 10 millones de pesos, lo cual implicó una tarea de presupuesto muy fina y muy delicada. Hacer un ejercicio como de mucha honestidad de qué necesitamos y qué no necesitamos, ¿no? Y en ese sentido obtuvimos algunos apoyos de parte de la Secretaría de Turismo del Gobierno del Estado de Guanajuato.
Nosotros estamos apoyando proyectos que coincidan, que se alineen a lo que nosotros entenderíamos como la promoción turística del Estado. En este momento, bueno, pues estamos apoyando a la película de Peter Greenaway, Eisenstein en Guanajuato, que bueno, pues es una película de época, una historia muy interesante de este personaje ruso que vivió por aquí hace algunas décadas. Y bueno, pues también es parte de la forma en la que nosotros mostramos este Guanajuato, que es historia, que es cultura, pero que también es arte.
I always feel that, making a film is about like having a baby. It takes about 9 months, human gestation period. Probably a little longer than that, but you think about these projects for a long time, but the actual preparation and the making and the editing, it's probably about 9 months.
Íbamos a filmar 6 semanas, estamos filmando 3. Tuvimos mucha suerte que recibimos muchos apoyos en especie de muchas partes y contrario a lo que pensábamos, Peter está contento con eso, o sea, se le hace como muy mágico, está contento y luego todavía sale y dice, no solamente tengo todo lo que no pensé que íbamos a tener por esta crisis de financiamiento por la que pasamos, dice, tengo todo eso, sale el sol, porque pues ellos viven en Holanda, sale el sol todos los días, hay luz, la gente es amable, hay comida, o sea, como que la generosidad de nuestro país se hace patente en todo. O sea, no es un tema de financiamiento, es un tema como de actitud.
Okay, I come here as an innocent European, but I do find the people incredibly friendly, incredibly open. For good or bad, whether it's true or not, Mexico has gathered together for itself a rather, savage and violent reputation. But there is an affability here and an openness, which I find, charming and entertaining and heartwarming. Europeans tend to be, cynical and rather enclosed and wrapped up in their own affairs.
My name is Rasmus Sletis, and I play Grigori Alexandrov, or Grisha. Grisha is, or was, Eisenstein's right hand, or maybe left hand, co-director, co-writer in many of their films that they did together. So the movie that they came to shoot here in Mexico, if I'm not wrong, it was in 1979 that Grisha Alexandrov edited a version of Que Viva Mexico. Yeah.
My name is Jakob Urman, and I play Tisse. He's the cameraman that Eisenstein used in many of his movies. So in this movie, Eisenstein has been alone in Mexico for a while, and then one day his two best friends, Edward Tisse and Alexandrov, come to Mexico to shoot the movie.
Action! Sergei, there's been a mudslide to the south of the city. The heavy rains last night. There are many dead, many injured. We should go there and film a natural Mexican disaster. Are it all is that just natural?
Hey, come on, get your clothes on. It's not time for idle philosophy. Saturday we can record. Show what happened. Show people that need not happen again.
I doubt that she go out of it. I was up late watching the store. Ask Mercedes to send me up some breakfast.
Very cinematic, isn't it? Incredible.
He was very interested in the Mexican Civil War. Mexico's Civil War breaks out, I think, about 1910. So that's 7 years before the Russian Revolution. So Mexico, in a sense, was ahead of the Russian Revolution. And Eisenstein was always interested in that.
It's Eisenstein with Tisey and Alexandrov who celebrate the Russian Revolution. There's some women that they bring along, and Tisey and Alexandrov are teasing Eisenstein a bit because he's not that comfortable with women, so they try to push him in this, but it's very friendly and very... I think it's a scene where the friendship between these three guys is established.
Elmer Beck, who plays Eisenstein, is the third part in our theater group since we have 12 years ago with Elmer, Rasmus Sletis and then me. So when Elmer got the role, we had a meeting with Peter and they were still looking for the friends of Eisenstein. So then Peter came and saw a show that we did, and then he said, hey, but maybe these guys could also be in the movie, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I was so happy when I received the script the first time because I was also surprised. I mean, I had expected it to be very good. I'm a big Peter Greenaway admirer from long before, but it was surprisingly funny, I felt. I mean, in a very, very nice way, kind of like really comedy funny sometimes. And I think if you can combine that with like art in a good way, when it becomes like in a good, I think you're close to something very interesting. Maybe it's the greatest thing about this character is that I really feel that he can do almost anything. I mean, I have a license to do a lot. So usually you have, with a role, you can do maybe this much and then it's too much. With him, I mean, he can do whatever he wants. We just have to choose.
I want to make a film that somehow has an equivalent to the extraordinary mind of Eisenstein. He had hundreds of disciplines and fascinations, and his ideas were sprouting about all over the place. And he related cinema very much to Central European culture, and so I want to make references to it. Those statues you saw me, I found them. They were in the Opera House. I'd never seen them before, but they're statues about all the great figures in Western art who Eisenstein would have, you know, Beethoven, Mozart, Dante, Shakespeare. I've forgotten who the others are, but there are 8 of them. So I thought, you know, if he's going to stay there, he would embrace them and put them into his film. That's what we're doing. So I've got to find a structure which is multifarious. Well, you know, we've now got the digital revolution. There are new ways to make cinema, and it's very exciting. So I would like to put, you know, all the new ideas of putting pictures and images and sound together to try and make something, okay, you know, something that maybe would have amused and entertained. You know, Eisenstein, I think Eisenstein was alive now, he would use all these new technologies.
Much slower now. All right.
Lo suyo es la forma y la luz. Es lo que más le interesa a él.
I think he's a great director also because he's an artist, and you feel really that you're in an art project, not so much in a normal film project, which of course leaves you, you can go places where you normally wouldn't go with cinema, I think, acting-wise. And I got really interested in this because I've been working a lot with theater also. We've used a lot of camera on stage in theater, but kind of theatralic. Theatralic? No, that's not the word.
Action. This is my wife, Concepcion. This is Rolando. Saluda.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Y ese pedacito de humano es Pascal.
I'm sorry, I have no version about this.
Improvisation, well, for me, I mean, yes, in a way. I never felt the need to improvise. I thought the text was so good, so I felt, why do you need to improvise? If you have very good text, I don't know why I would come up with something better the same minute than he has when he's written. I thought it was, perfect, the script, so I thought I'm just going to take in the script. So I do it word by word. I don't improvise words. But of course I improvise what I can do in the sense.
Es súper preciso, ¿no? Con respecto a lo que él necesita. Entre menos palabras es mucho más clara la dirección para el actor, ¿no?
Muy relajado, muy relajado. Y de pronto va encontrando como jueguitos o cosas que se te ocurren. Tiene un ojo muy preciso, muy sensible.
Okay, let's do another one. Cut, sorry. Let's do another one.
Te digo, no se aparta de yo mis ideas, al contrario. Con quien sea que se ponga a cotorrear del crew, él está en sus ideas, en su discurso, y lo comparte y le gusta saber tú qué piensas, cómo la ves, y, o sea, está abierto y da y comparte, no se queda con nada, o sea, todo lo pone afuera y lo da.
Es un personaje que la gente como que disfruta mucho, ¿no? O sea, cada uno de los que les he preguntado, me han contado sus anécdotas aquí, sí hay como una sensación de estar jugando todo el tiempo. Y eso se agradece muchísimo. Está muy divertido, es como un juego de niños al final.
Un niño de 71, 73 años, no sé exactamente cuántos tiene.
I'm 71 now, so my days are numbered, but I just hope that, I can make maybe 10 more films. Directly after I finish this, so probably from about July, we start pre-production of a new film, which is based upon Death in Venice, the Visconti Thomas Mann story. Then I have a film about Brancusi, the Romanian sculptor who in 1904 walked from Bucharest to Paris. Then I have a film about Oskar Kokoschka, a Viennese painter. I have a Japanese ghost story I'm going to make very shortly. Many, many projects. I think for the first time I'm about 8 scripts ahead now.
Peter no es un director complaciente, por el contrario, es un director que tiene un discurso bastante articulado, pero es un director provocador.
I've always argued there are only 2 things to talk about. One is sex and the other is death. What else is there to talk about?
Le gusta hacer a la gente pensar.
Balzac suggested money, but money's not very important. It hasn't been around for very long, and an awful lot of stupid people have got money, so it can hardly be very important.
No está obsesionado con los finales felices.
If you read the plays of Shakespeare, you think power. But power, in a way, is only a way to manipulate yourself and mortality. So we're back to sex and death again. I don't know very much about either of you, but I do know 2 things. 2 people fucked to make you, and I'm sorry, but you're going to die. And everything else is negotiable. And certainly a large amount of cinema is about fucking and dying.
Good, and cut. Thank you.
Bueno, desde luego esta no es la primera visita que hace Peter Greenaway a nuestro país. Ha venido ya una veintena de veces, ha montado exposiciones, ha dado conferencias magistrales, sobre todo en el Festival de Guanajuato hace un tiempo presentó un espectáculo audiovisual como VJ, ¿no? Como videojockey. Fue muy impresionante porque sí trabajó como ese principio que él ha mencionado, que el cine debe de dejar de depender de un solo cuadro, ¿no? Que es algo en lo que él ha insistido, que ya basta de ver siempre el mismo cuadro, que esto es algo que ya desde los Lumière ya llevamos como encima como maldición. Entonces él dice hay que irse más allá de la pantalla, irse a las paredes, ¿no? Entonces ese espectáculo que montó en Guanajuato de alguna manera ilustraba esa tendencia, ¿no? Esperemos que la película que resulte de Eisenstein en Guanajuato responda a ese carácter innovador.